Good evening, sir.
Namaste.
Dheeraj.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Dheeraj.
Welcome to everybody. The third session, or in this month, or in this series, the second session on Yoga Vasista. We had the introduction part of the Yoga Vasista in the first. Still, some new people have joined it. Probably, I request Adharaniya Raghuji to give a brief introduction of the Yoga Vasista and then proceed further where he has left in the last class with Kshama, Santosha and Vichara. So we will start with a prayer. 3 Omkars and then Sahana Bhavatu. ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः रघुजी
ब्रह्मरूपमादिमध्यशेष सर्वभासकम् भावषट्कहीनरूपनित्यसत्यमद्वयम् वाङ्मनोतिगोचरं च नेति नेति भावितम् तं नमामि देवदेव रामकृष्णमीश्वरम्. Namaste to all of the participants of this satsang. I was asked by Sudhakarji to repeat whatever I had said earlier, but that would be unnecessary repetition for one very good reason. You see, the difference between the scientific treatises and literature, language, any language literature is, they don't repeat because you're not expected to repeat. Whereas scriptural texts, especially our scriptural texts, they go on repeating, perhaps in a different language, in a different context, but the thought as such gets repeated. The reason is our texts or our shastras are meant to be implemented in life. They are to be lived in life. Whatever truth is given to us by the Shastra, the person who has written the Shastra and the person who is studying the Shastra is expected to teach the person who is learning, and the person who is learning to live that truth which is given. Because unless and until the whatever we have heard is not lived, it will be of no use. It'll be just like, we are going for a lecture and then we say we heard a wonderful lecture. But what is it that happened to us before? What were we before listening to the lecture, and what happened to us or what is going to happen to us after the lecture is very, very important. So I will definitely be repeating, but not per se. Whatever words I had used, I'll not be repeating it. But yes, today's topic being connected with the three friends whom we were introduced by Vasishta Muni. Shama, Vichara, Santosha. We'll take up the fourth one little later on. How are they useful to us in life? Now, for the time being, we'll keep the Shastra a little away, and then we'll talk about what is going to happen to us if we start living these three principles, three truths which were introduced by Vasishta as the sentinels of Mukti, the palace of Mukti, he says. The first one is Shama, is the patience. And last time we saw that the patience is whenever we are transacting with the world outside, let us be patient. Whenever we are interacting with people, let us be patient to listen to them. If we have this patience of listening to others, then we'll discover that we are able to learn something from that person, whoever it is. And the second thing comes is patience with ourselves. Let's take a very simple and probably most common example in which happens in every house. Let us say that we have an old person who is used to a certain daily routine. He's about 80 years old, or 85 years old, quite advanced in his age. He has been living in a disciplined life, and perhaps he has the habit of taking his tea at a particular time, say 7 o'clock, and taking his lunch at 12. And the lady of the house, naturally, she's extremely busy. Throughout the day, she's working, and then, but at the same time, she follows the routine of the old person, the grandfather, as far as possible. And once she has to attend the parent meeting, the schools call the parents for a meeting to assess the child's progress and other things. So when she returns, it's about 11:30. But used to this 12 o'clock routine schedule that the old man is, he waits for 15 minutes. He waits for 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And at 12:30, he slowly approaches the kitchen and asks the lady, is the lunch ready? Probably the lady as such, she was very busy cooking, and at the same time, there was some problem in the school. She's disturbed, and then she immediately blurts out, what do you think? I'm only there to serve you people? And what happens if you have one day a late lunch? What happens to you? She shouts back. The old person, he slowly retreats and sits quietly. This is a transaction. What happened? The lady, the man, old person as such, he had only asked, is it ready? He just wanted to know the fact, is it ready? She could have answered in a different manner, but she reacted. This is what is known as reaction. She reacted, and whenever we react, there are three things there. First is there is irritation. Second thing is there may be a little anger, annoyance and anger. And then third is outburst. But suppose she had Shama, she would have listened to the old person. What would have happened? She would have heard him and says, immediately because she understands that his routine is disturbed. So she says, Dadaji, I had to go to the school today, and then there was some, in fact, old people are very receptive when you tell them something. So this is what happens, and I was little disturbed. And because of that, I came late, and then the lunch it's going to be ready. I'll give you in maybe about 15-20 minutes. Sorry for that. The second was a response. What did the lady do? She heard him, she listened to the person, and then she thought, yes, today it's late, but I have to tell him my problem also. So simultaneously, this Shama and Vichara, thought, they go hand in hand. And this is how most of the time, we react instead of responding because we don't have the patience. So you see how Shama is connected with our day-to-day life? Same thing is there with most of our transactions. Why do we react that way? That's a different question. To that question we'll come a little later on. When this happens, that means Shama is there and Vichara simultaneously goes on. Then the transaction as such, which you have with people, is quite peaceful, quite amicable, friendly. But reactions always bring in counter reactions. And that's what is happening to the world around us. This is what we see. The children, in fact, if they are not able to achieve whatever they had planned, then they suddenly become very, very depressed and maybe even take their very lives in the process. That's why the suicidal cases are increasing day by day. The violence is increasing because there are sudden reactions. The mind says something, mind sees something, or rather the ear hears something and the mind immediately interprets it in a particular manner, and then we react. And in that reaction, what really happens? Nobody is aware. The victim is there. The victim also is equally responsible, no doubt about it. But the person who has reacted has no Shama and absolutely no Vichara. Because there is no Shama, there is no Vichara. This process of Shama and Vichara, actually, this continues throughout our journey. Life as such, you can just observe people around us. We find that there are people who most of the time respond. They don't react. Somebody says that who is enlightened? Who is an enlightened person? He says, an enlightened person has stopped reacting and only he responds. Whereas a normal person, he only reacts and there is less of response or no response. The third friend, third sentinel is Santosha. If we just look around us, examine our own lives, what is happening? We are going after things. We are going after things, multiplying our possessions. And in the process, what is happening is that most of the time, most of our time is spent only on collecting things. It is like, you are preparing to live. It's only our whole life. Apparently, it appears as if We are preparing to live, and suddenly we find that the time has come for us to leave, or there's very little time to live as such. So the third friend comes now. We find the vichara will help us. How? It says that I have more than enough. Now I think it's time for me to give time, devote time for myself, my family. In fact, our online sessions and online lockdown period has given time for us with our family. We are able to live amicably in the family as such. No doubt, the lady of the house has to work very hard to please to entertain the husband and children, because there is repeated request for food and drinks. But yes, we are able to spend time with ourselves and our family. Similarly, it is also very much necessary. If somebody asks me, I say it's mandatory to devote time for ourselves. Some time, like last time we saw that we have to give, let's give some time for ourselves, to befriend ourselves. And Santosha is the one which helps us to become our own friends. And naturally, as a consequence, we'll be friends to others outside world. Now, one question comes up. What is that question? Most of the time, or all the time, even the experienced sadhakas as such, there's one conviction which is very difficult to erase from our mind and intellect. What is that? Whatever happiness and misery, happiness as well as misery, outside world is responsible. The happiness as well as misery is given to me by the external world through the contact of senses. And this is the reason why we go on collecting and gathering things. That conviction is very, very, very important, very stubborn. And this is how we go on gathering things, and then we spend most of our time in this. So, Santosha helps us to think about our own life. This dependence on the external things, dependence on external things for our own happiness, is narrated by Yoga Shastras and the Vedanta Shastras as the likes and the dislikes. In the Sanskrit jargon, it is called as Raga and Dvesha. We try to seek what gives us happiness. Sukhanushayi Ragaha, it is said. That which follows happiness is Raga. Dukkhanushayi Dvesha, aversion. We want to possess the thing which gives us happiness, and we want to avoid that brings in unhappiness. The dual part of Raga and Dvesha, the likes and dislikes, plays a very, very important role, if I may say so, a dominant role in all our behavior. Again, why is that? The conviction. The conviction that whatever is happening, it's because of external world. Many times, in fact, all the time when this happens, a time comes in our lives, sometime or the other. A question comes, probably when we are very much disturbed, or if we are fortunate, if we are extremely happy. Even then, sometimes, very rarely, this happens. The questions come, what is the purpose of life? What's the meaning of life? This question comes much later, but it does come into the lives of people who are miserable, who are unhappy, who are disturbed, who are depressed. And when this question comes, the answer which is sought by the person brings in spirituality. You may ask, how can a disturbance bring in spirit? How can we step into spirituality through disturbance? It does, because you have started asking the question. Perhaps when, in fact, all the animal kingdom and being, all of them, except man, it doesn't take life very seriously. They all take it as it comes. Yes, it is said that the domesticated animals, which are in contact with men, they also sometimes, because I think we transfer our depression and our excitement to them, and they also become depressed. And there are, I believe, I'm given to understand that there are animal psychologists who treat dogs or cats which are undergoing depression or some shock or something like that. But otherwise, the animal kingdom and the insect and the bird kingdom, they are living life very naturally. They live, they are born, they live and die naturally without any problem. It is given only to man to observe that the life ends. Somebody was asking, why is it that we are afraid of death? Actually, we are not afraid of death because death has not happened to us. Let's not talk about the incarnation part of it. But as far as this life is concerned, we have not experienced it. Then how can we say that we are afraid of death? We are afraid actually of not of death, but we are afraid to give up or leave these things, the things which we have collected here only, and then leave. We also understand that not even this body can be taken or is to be left here when we die. We are afraid of leaving things here because we are attached to things. So this whole chain of understanding will help us to ask these questions. What is the purpose of life? What is the secret of, what is the origin? How did it originate? How did this universe originate? And there were hundreds of explanations. Most of them are contradictory to one another. In science, they say that if you ask the right question, the answer is hidden in the question itself. Something like that happened to our ancestors. They did not ask the origin of the universe. Instead, they asked one very wonderful question, very deep question. It appears very simple, but it's extremely deep. Like the discovery of wheel or the fire, as far as our inner growth is concerned. Who perceives this world? Naturally, the answer is I. This I is behind all perception, all action. I see, I hear, I listen. I think, I react, all those reactions, and that I is there, very much there in all our actions. So they asked this fundamental question: what is the origin of I? What is this I? And when we have come to this, that means our journey stops going outside. That is, the journey of going outside stops. And the journey within begins. That's where we enter the field of spirituality by starting to look within. All the yogic practices, the bhakti, the jnana, whatever yoga practices we have, they have only one fundamental aim, that is to help us to look within, to help us to understand what I am. The perception is there only for this I. And they came to a conclusion, a very logical conclusion, that the whole universe as such exists for me. That's to be put in the parenthesis, brackets. For me, the universe exists only when I perceive it. So the outside has become less important than the inside. Kaschid dhiraha pratyagatmanamaikshat avritta chakshuhu amrutatvam. A certain dhira, a certain highly patient person, he turned his vision inward, and then he achieved. What was his aim? He wanted to know himself, pratyagatman, inside the I. Let's put it very simply. Let's not talk about Atman and things like that. Let's be very, what is this I? And when this happened, the spirituality started. The revolution started. Fundamental aim of all this, in fact, what is it that we are doing at the moment? We are trying to walk this path of spirituality. We are trying to understand for turning our vision inwards. Now, immediately, a doubt may come into our mind as to how can we look within. By the word avritta chakshu, looking within, it does not mean turning the eyes inward. It means, as far as possible, trying to decrease our transactions outside. Decrease the outside transactions as far as possible, so that my interactions with the external world become less, and if possible, stop, so that I can understand myself. Let's take the example of asanas, which most of us are practicing, as Sudhakarji was telling me. The yoga asanas. What is it that we are learning? We are learning to concentrate on that part of the body which is being stretched. We are learning to observe the breath. And for observing the breath, you don't require to open your eyes. For observing yourself, it's immediate. You don't require spectacles for that. It's obvious. But that obviousness has been lost by many of us, most of us, because our transactions, and through the transactions, our indulgence, that is through body and senses, and involvement through mind, that is through aversion and attraction, raga and dvesha and raga. What is happening? We are tied as though to the world outside, and we are unable to see what is inside. There was one Sufi saint, one lady saint, who was a master herself. Her name was Rabaya. Rabaya was an old lady, very, very old lady. And she used to sit inside her hut most of the time. It is said that she had a guest, one more seeker. He was not an enlightened master as yet. His name was Hassan. Hassan visited us. And like all mothers are, she was very happy. She entertained him with whatever she had, food, water. And then she offered the bed of grass so that he could sleep. Early morning, Hassan got up, and he saw the old lady sitting very quietly with a beautiful smile on her face. He thought probably she's praying. Hassan went out and he saw wonderful sunrise, and the nature was fresh, greeting him. He became so happy. And what happens when we are happy? We want to share it with others. So he called, Rabaya, come outside. Look at the world around. It's so beautiful. It's so inviting. Come and enjoy the world outside. Rabaya, it seems, she answered, Hassan, come inside. The world outside is nothing when compared to the world inside. What a beautiful story. This is what spirituality is telling us. Look within. But at the same time, I don't want you to leave everything and then start looking within. It requires preparation, and that's what we are doing. Shama, Vichara, Santosha. These are the preparations. I told you, they are our companions throughout till we enter and then get established in the palace of Mukti. They'll come throughout with us. And if these three things are understood by all of us, initially, let's understand intellectually, and let us enter into it. Let's practice by observing ourselves, by observing the world as we saw. We'll be able to learn a lot of things. And through this learning, we'll be able to look within, which will bring us joy. Many of the people say that we don't have time. We are busy all the time. And they say that they give an excuse. I call it as an excuse because we do have time, but we don't have time for ourselves. We have time for chatting, mobile chatting, emails. We have time for watching movies. But apparently, this time is not for us. It's not our fault. Look, let's be patient with ourselves. It's because of our long, age-old, eon-old, that is for thousands of years and probably thousands of births, we have been living in this way. This is the particular way in which we are living, because all the time our attention is outside. So this attention to be turned inward, it requires effort. So immediately, the people who, in fact, most of the time we respect those people who have renounced the world, who have accepted this Kavi way of life, the saints and our sadhus. We respect them because somewhere we are aware that this is a very difficult situation. But this difficult situation is not for the sadhu. The difficult situation is for me, because a lot of investment is required. I ask you only one question, a very logical question, where we can all answer that. Do you think making money is easy? I mean, just look outside. It's very, very difficult. So much of effort. And these days, people are losing jobs like anything. Somebody comes for a vacation from UK or US, and whenever he tries to go back, that job is lost. People have come back from outside countries, and people have lost during this 1.5 years of this COVID. Many people have. So the question is, even to earn money, even to earn for our survival, it's very, very difficult. The effort is so much. Somebody says, no action means no food. No food means no life. Action is very, very important. So action for things outside, they require a lot of effort. Similarly, we feel, because we are not used to the things within, we feel that the effort inside is much higher because you have to leave things. We had one student long time back, one Sanjay Kotial by name, he is from Badrinath. He asked me one question. He says, ध्यान से क्या फायदा है? I answered him very frankly. With meditation, you don't gain anything. In fact, you lose. Immediately his eyes were, because he was in 11th or 12th class at that time, when he asked this question. I said, you lose because you may stop becoming angry. All your negative qualities are there. But if you sit for meditation with a view of gaining something, then you'll not get anything. If you succeed in meditation, you will not gain anything. But if you are, because you'll be losing something. But if you are sitting for meditation for gain, for labh, kya faida, then you'll not be able to achieve. Because what is it, the aputta condition? I'll explain it to you in a normal way, our day-to-day experience. I'll ask you now, I'll ask you to do something. I'll give you an exercise. Try to feel the right knee. Did it require any effort? You didn't do anything. You just attended to a particular part of your body. This whole machine, this whole body is so beautiful, so wonderful, that we have what are known as proprioceptors. They give a sense of, they are spread all over the body. That is called as the sense of touch, is through proprioceptors. So these proprioceptors tell us the sense of being. Asanas, we can make use of these feelers, proprioceptors, and then we become aware of our body. I ask you to just observe your one inhalation. Is it difficult? Breathing is so natural, so automatic. You don't have to put any effort for it. Only thing is you become attentive to your breath. And when you become attentive to your breath, that means you are becoming aware of yourself. Yourself has got so many things, so many other things that we'll come to little later on. But we have started becoming aware of ourselves. In the corporate sector, they have started introducing certain wonderful practices which are very, very simple. They say periodically, probably about after 1.5 hours or 2 hours, somebody comes with a bell. And it's a temple bell. And when that bell is rung, all the people are expected to remove their spectacles and sit quietly. And that period is only 1 minute or 1.5 minutes. Because the corporate sector cannot afford to give you so much of time for yourself. But they say that with this 1 minute or 1.5 minutes of relaxation, they don't call it as meditation, they call it as relaxation. When you close your eyes and sit quietly, what is it that you're doing? You're becoming aware. This small awareness increases your efficiency in your work. Outside work is also improving. At the same time, the inner awareness is also increasing, which helps us to grow. Last time we saw that there are 2 types of growths. One is the horizontal growth, the growth of the body. This whole evolution as an organic evolution is evolution, horizontal evolution. But when it comes to man, it is vertical. You go inward as well as upward. You go inward to understand yourself, and then slowly and steadily you expand this awareness as such, which helps you to be a wonderful person who understands the process of life, who understands the life around him, who understands the people who come in contact with him. That is how, when you approach certain people, certain enlightened persons, when you go near them, something happens. You are at ease. There's no problem. Whenever you, I do not know how many of you have gone there, you enter Ramakrishna Mission. You enter Tiruvannamalai, Ramanashram. The moment you enter, you feel as if you have entered a different planet altogether. there is poise, there is peace, and you don't feel like reacting. Naturally, why? Because a person who is enlightened is still there, very much there in Ramanashram, in Ramakrishna missions, Ramakrishna ashrams, the prayer hall. You attend their arati, you are exalted, you are transported to another world as such. You go to any ashram, any place of worship. There are places of worship where you go, they are so active, so they are so vibrant. Why? Because the people lived there, people did their sadhana, people did their meditation. So you grow inward and also slowly and steadily, externally also in this. Aurobindo gives a wonderful explanation of evolution. He says, when we say that man is evolving, man is not just becoming a wonderful human being, a divine being and supramental being and all that. That hierarchical growth is there. He says he becomes a better animal. Why? Because his senses are so fresh. He's able to see. It's not that his eyes are very brilliant or something. He's able to see the world. He's able to see the mechanism of the world. He's able to see what is happening. You don't have to tell him. You go in front. That's what this Trikaladnya, the people who are Trikaldarshis, why is it that they are able to see? Because they have expanded so much that they don't have to peep into your mind, but they understand immediately by looking at your face. Many of the people who approached Raman Maharshi or Sri Ramakrishna as such, whatever they had in mind, Ramakrishna or Raman Maharshi, they didn't give this, they didn't have to ask them. They just gave out the solutions to them. And they says, it's wonderful. I didn't tell him anything about my problem, but well, he taught us, he told us what to do in his own words. Why? Because we are going to be better human beings. Unless and until we become better human beings, we cannot enter the world of divinity and spirituality and all that. So these three things, let us become more and more intimate with these three friends of Shama, Vichara, and Santosha. Vishwamitra tells Vasishta tells a wonderful story in the beginning of this whole treatise as such. He says, there was one person known as Akashaja, that is born of Akasha. He doesn't describe much about it. It's not a very big story as such. But it's called as Akhyana. It's a story, nevertheless. He says he had transcended death. But he was born of Akasha. Now, this is a paradox which Vasishta says. To understand that means he was in an expanded state of awareness, which helped him to understand the whole world, but he had stopped reacting totally. And that's why he had transcended death. Now, this is the story. But how do we understand the essence of the story? And he's introducing the whole scripture with this story. I'll tell you why. We'll tell another episode which is very, very popular. It is said that one, I think it's Ashtavakra, who enters the court of Janaka. And when he enters the court, Janaka had already told he had sent the Dutas to tell that whoever is able to give me enlightenment, Janaka says, during the time when I put my left foot in the stirrup, that is horse, rikab they say in Hindi, I do not know what they call in Malayalam or other languages. It's the stirrup in which you put your left foot, and then you take the right foot, right leg, and then climb the horse. Within that time, a person who is able to give me enlightenment I'll call him, I'll accept him as my guru. This is a folk tale, but it brings in the idea. And everybody in his court and in his kingdom, he says that Janaka has really lost his rockers. He has gone mad. How is it possible to probably within few seconds, how can you give anybody enlightenment? Ashtavakra comes. I think it's Ashtavakra who comes there, and then he says, I'm ready. And Ashtavakra tells him, the sage tells him, he says that you give me your Guru Dakshina, because once you get enlightened, there'll be no Guru and there'll be no disciple. He said whatever Dakshina he has to give, he gives the sage. And then he says, put your left foot in the stirrup. He puts that. And then he whispers in the ear of Janaka, hand me your ahankara, he says. Give me your ahankara. And Janaka, the eligible person that he is, he drops his ahankara and gets enlightenment. But how many of us are in this stage? It says that people like Janaka, people like that Akashaja, they require, or Shuka, they just require a small push and then they get enlightened. But for us, it's a long way. It's a long process where we learn, we experiment, and we discover. These three things are there. We learn by listening, by keep on thinking, contemplating on what we have heard, what we have listened, and then implementing it, experimenting it. When we start experimenting with the truth, that truth becomes intellectually very strong. It is said that whenever you practice something, it becomes your being, part of your being. You experiment and then get enlightened or learn, that learning process of learning, and that learning, it will never leave you. So the process of traveling with the help of these three friends is what is principal to the beginning of this Yoga Vasista. And having understood this and having experimented with them, let us practice it in our day-to-day life. Like I gave you the example of the lady. You can try it. How many times it happens after we react, we realize that I should not have reacted that way. Many times it happens. We shout at somebody and then we realize, was it necessary for me? Apparently, it's not necessary. We could have spoken in a simpler manner. There's one very important thing which we should understand and remember. Whenever we say Shama, that is sweet patience, that sweet patience is only as long as it is not harming you. Somebody says, I don't know how far that logic goes, but somebody says that if somebody slaps you, you show your next other cheek to him. How far that is practical, I do not know, but I personally feel it's not necessary. If somebody is coming there with an intention of harming you, you have very in a very peaceful manner, amicable manner, you tell him, look, this is where your independence or freedom stops, because my freedom begins there. It is said that one child was taking a stone. We used to play during our childhood. We used to tie a thread to the stone, and then we'll go on doing it so that we are able to hear the sound of that, and also we see the circle only. So see, that child was doing that, but that the rope was quite long, that thread was quite long, and somebody was passing through, and he was coming in way. Immediately that person who was coming, he shouted at him, "What is it that you are doing?" Immediately the child looked, and then he saw a person with a lot of mustaches, and he said that he kept that thing aside. So as if somebody is coming you with harm, it's not necessary. In fact, you have to tell. If you do not protest, he'll go on harming others. So it's always right to protest when somebody is doing you any harm. Otherwise, you should be born like Nyandev and his siblings. They tolerated the pressure of society to this extent that they became gods in the process. But we are not going to become gods immediately. So let us be human first. So whenever somebody comes to harm you, remember, you have to stop him or her. Vichara, don't be obsessed by thinking. These are all the precautions which you should take. Many of us, we have different capacities, we have different tendencies. Many of us are quite simple and then we are very happy-go-lucky. We don't have this problem. But there are some of us who are obsessed by thought, who are obsessed by, this chain reaction. That is, the mind as such goes on weaving. Worry, for example, is that one of the outcomes of this kind of obsession with thinking. You go on, start predicting what's going to happen. And in the process, actually, you have not crossed that way, but you have started predicting already before you start the work as such. So this obsession of thinking also should not be there when we are doing vichara. Vichara should be there for that particular part. Don't extend it. Don't go on extending it, because vichara is also a tool to help us. We should not become victims, or we should not become slaves to vichara as such. Anything can become, because mind is such. It has got wonderful qualities. It can become our friend, and most of the time, it is our enemy. If you want to befriend him, then you have to walk logically. We have to walk in a disciplined manner, which will help us not to overdo anything. You don't have to. It's the middle path. In Jainism, there are Mahavrata and Anuvrata. Mahavrata means come what may, they have to follow that certain code of discipline, certain code of conducts. This is meant for munis and sadhus. But Anuvrata is whatever is possible for us. We have to survive, and we have to look after the people who are dependent on us. We have to fulfill all our responsibilities. Fulfilling all our responsibilities, acting and involved in action that we are, fulfilling those actions, we have to perform at the same time. We have another duty, which we are discussing now, to ourselves. That is understanding ourselves, befriending ourselves. Initially we'll start observing ourselves, observing our behavior. And through that, we'll slowly try to understand why we are doing that way. Why it is that the different people are acting in a different way. When something happens in somebody's life, and one particular way, one stimulus is there, that a person has failed, or he has not been successful in his attempt to seek something or get something. He becomes extremely depressed. He's disturbed. And all his behavior is dominant of that depression or disappointment. There is another person. He's in the same situation, but he's not disturbed. He says that something went wrong. I did something wrong. I'll correct that mistake. I'll try to find out what went wrong. I'll try not to repeat it. That's the person who is doing vichara. The third person is one who is happy. He's not disturbed. He says, oh, it's okay, no problem. Like the example which we used to get in whenever we used to play cricket in the college. So our PTI our physical director, we used to say that if you lose one ball, it's not that you're going to stop batting. If you lose this wicket, it's not that you're going to stop playing cricket. It says it's one ball, and at that particular moment, you are not aware, you are not alert. That's why you lost this wicket. That's why you missed this ball, he would say. Something like that. We have thousands and millions of opportunities which are placed every time. And the third person is the person who says, doesn't matter. It doesn't make any difference. Now, why is it that these three people, and probably you will have more examples who will behave in a different manner. Why is it that each one of us behaves in a different way? It's because of our tendencies. Vasanas, he calls tendencies. We have tendencies. We have action. And whenever the tendencies are there, we get attracted to a particular type of action. And when we get involved with the action, when we do it repeatedly, then it becomes a nature. It becomes the nature. It becomes what is known as samskara in Vedantic language. Habitually, we start doing something. So these are the three things that affect our behavior. So if we are able to, again, befriend those three friends, then start practicing it. Slowly and steadily, we become aware of our habits. And that habit as such drops off on its own. When that understanding comes, it's a foolish habit. It's not necessary. It's waste my energy. It's waste of energy. Srimati Indira Gandhi, it was during, I think it was way back in 84, 85, 82, 83, 82, during that non-aligned summit, it happened. And Indira Gandhi was hosting the thing. India was hosting. During the press conference, she was asked, what is your opinion about anger? Somebody asked. Apparently, it was a mischievous question, but she turned it so beautifully. She said that it's waste of energy. Anger is a waste of energy. The next question by the same person was, have you conquered it? She said, not yet. I'm in the process. I mean, she was so frank. So, waste of energy. Whenever we get habituated to a particular thing and we go on repeating it, knowing fully well that it's a useless activity, then it's waste of energy. And what is it that we come into this world with what? We have time, which is limited, and we have energy, which also is limited. And when the time comes, we have to drop these things. And when our energy is consumed totally, we have to leave this world. So let's become aware of these three things and try to understand ourselves. And perhaps even if you do not listen to the coming lectures, it doesn't matter. If you have heard this and understood what we are trying to discuss here, I think we have, and I'll consider myself twice blessed, because I think I've been able to convey something. And if I'm not, then probably I'll again, maybe I'll rethink. And I had that much to share with you. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Raghuji. And in your own way, you have been able to put us on the track where we are faltering, where we should become aware, how to change our life, the need for change, the methodology to change, all the things in a span of 1 hour time. And I know it is a sort of homework. Every day we face a lot of situations where we react, or rather we are unconsciously we start reacting it. If only we can develop that kshama, I am sure that we will be able to respond. The very fact that you start responding, there will be quantitative change in your own approach to the life itself. I am sure this 1 week period will help us to identify the situations, how many times we responded and how many times we reacted it. Even with that little bit of awareness, I am sure we have taken the first step and we go into the vichara part of it. What made me to think, or what made me to react, or what made me to respond? And I am sure these interactions or these classes will help us to make our lives a better life, a better human being. I'm very grateful to Raghuji, and we come back with our own experiences. And if any questions where you are not able to respond, you might be reacting it. Why and how? If we start questioning ourselves, we will be able to get into that vichara aspect of it also, which makes us or which takes us to that end aspect for which we all of us are living, that happiness. Ultimately, that happiness makes us the man, from animal man to man, the capital man. Let us pray that God gives us this wisdom, this knowledge to mold our own lives. Atma Deepo Bhava. The series are titled Atma Deepo Bhava. Let us light our own lives so that our family, people around us, will be able to bring a transformation. In the turn, we might be able to bring transformation at the national level, state level, etc. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask. We have already crossed about 3 minutes past 8:30. And if you have any questions, you can ask, or otherwise you can post it in the group. Raghuji will start the questions in the next session, and then he will continue further.
I think that's a better idea, because next time we'll start with the audience. Otherwise,
Question, yeah, that's
there's many times, one likes to hear one's own voice, and then I should not get that. So let's give the audience a chance.
yeah, that is true. So we will give an opportunity for all of us to come up with questions. Maybe better if we can post it in the group so that the speaker also gets an opportunity to better equipped to answer your questions. I know answers come spontaneously; it doesn't come with a preparation. So we will conclude today's class with the Shanti mantra. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति. Shubharatri. We will meet again next week. Maybe those people who have not opened their videos, they can open it. Yeah.
Could I
Yes,
ask?
yes.
I just wanted to know the term that was used. some receptors you said. What receptors?
Proprioceptors.
Proprioceptors.
Proprioceptors. Proprioceptors.
Proprioceptors.
Not receptors, septors. Proprioceptors. Probably some doctor will be able to give you a better explanation.
I think Mithun is there.
Sorry to. It was my first chance to hear that terminology. I've heard it in a different platform actually, but in this platform, I was just wondering why was it coined up, and I would like to add the Raghunandanji, whatever he talked was simply wonderful. It's in a different level as such, because we deal with the common people. I have 10 people whom I teach the yoga. So I was always wondering what was enlightenment means. And by the way, when the class was going on, I was kind of feeling something is happening. So that's a kind of learning something new is there. The thing is, I have to convey this to those who are coming to me. So I was wondering how far I'll be able to do that. And I would say that was a wonderful way of delivering the practical side of vichara, kshama, all the stuff.
Santosha.
It would santosha, and it would be too early for me to react than getting my kshama for another week and act to it. Thank you so much, Raghunandanji. Namaste.
Every one of us, we are all traveling in the same boat. Okay, Sindhu, namaste. Leela, namaste. Gupta ji, namaste. Prasanna, namaste. Suresh, namaste.